Welcome, everyone. Welcome as you filter in. We are going to have some freedom songs from the Stockton University Gospel Choir.
Hello, excuse me. Dr. Allison, did you say it was time for the Freedom Singers?
I did.
Oh my goodness. Come here, put your hands together for the Freedom Singers. So at this time, welcome our Stockton students and one of our voice teachers doing freedom songs for you. Are you ready? Yeah! All right, here we go. Give me a good beat for that song when the saints go marching in. Come on, freedom singers. Put your hands together, here they are.
Oh, when we march up to the polls. Oh, when we march up to the polls. We will cast our vote for freedom. When we march up to the polls.
Keep that beat going. One. Come on, everybody. Help the freedom singers. Help us. Help us. Help us. Help us. 1, 2, 1, 2. Now. Oh, when
We march up to the polls. Oh, when we march up to the polls. We will cast our vote for freedom. When we march up to the polls.
here we go.
Oh, when we march up to the polls. Oh, when we march up to the polls. We will cast our vote for freedom. When we march up to the polls.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Beverly. What's my name? And these are the freedom singers. Who are they? I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Would you say that one more time? I heard a voice over there. Let's hear this side. Who are they? Okay, and who are they this side? And his name is Micah. What's his name? All right. We are the Freedom Singers, made of Stockton students, freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. And we have our voice teacher, Dr. Hughes. Dr. Hughes, would you raise your hand? Put your hands together. Dr. Hughes, it's your turn. 1, 2, 3. Woo! Come on, Dr. Hughes.
Don't you let nobody
Turn you round.
turn you
Turn
around.
you round.
Turn you around.
Turn you round.
Don't you let nobody Don't you let nobody
turn you around.
turn you around.
Turn you
Turn
around.
you
Turn you
around.
around.
Don't you let nobody.
Turn you around.
You gotta.
Keep on walking.
You gotta.
Keep on talking.
You gotta.
Keep on walking.
You gotta.
Keep on talking.
You gotta.
Keep on walking.
You gotta.
Keep on talking.
You gotta.
Keep on walking.
You gotta.
Keep on talking. Marching up to freedom land.
We ain't gonna let nobody turn us around. Fannie Lou Hamer sang this song. She also sang, when we march up to the polls, we're gonna cast our vote for freedom. What y'all gonna do? Oh, I'm sorry, I heard my student voice here. I heard Madeline's voice. When we march, what we gonna do? When we march up to the polls, what we gonna do? Okay, oh, when we march up to, help us, 1, 2, 3. Oh, when
When we march up to the polls, oh, when we march up to the polls, we will cast our vote for freedom. When we march up to the polls.
I kind of believe you. But I kind of don't. Let's sing our next song. Let's sing our next. When I march up to the polls. Come on, Dad, you can do it, Cat. Yeah.
Oh, freedom.
I love this song. It's from an old spiritual. But it casts y'all, it casts what we need today in 2023. Fannie Lou Hamer, I believe if she were here, she would understand. 1, 2, sing.
Lift every voice and sing.
With that, thank you, my soul, Lord. Thank you. At that moment, we all stand. Lift up as the African American national anthem. Let's try one. Give me that introduction one more time. Oh, thank you. You better sing. You better sing. Come on. Lift every
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won. Let us march on till victory is
We're going to do one more. Fannie Heyman's favorite song, just 2 courses. Fannie Heyman's favorite song, next one is Wrap Up. We just want to do 2 courses of Fannie Heyman's favorite song. We're going to feature on the piano our freshman in the key of F sharp. Just 2 courses, everybody take your phones
This little light of mine, I wanna let it shine. This little light of mine, I wanna let it shine. This little light of mine, I wanna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I wanna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
One more round of applause for the Freedom Singers. All right, now we're going to bring up our UBSS president. Come on down. She's going to give you a welcome. UBSS is the co-sponsor of this event, as they have been on this ride with us for 20 years.
Hello, students, family, friends, and faculty members. My name is Vanessa Bewia, and I'm the president of Unified Black Student Society. We are gathered here today to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Fannie Lou Hamer Human and Civil Rights Symposium. It is so marvelous that in 2023, we are allowed to intermingle freely amongst one another, vote, hold high power positions in society, be educated, and choose our own paths, because there was once a point in time when these things were forbidden for African Americans. Although tremendous progress has been made towards human and civil rights, the fight is nowhere near done. It's important to educate the younger generations of the past in order to prevent it from recurring. It is important to speak up when you see injustices happening to others, because if not for the ancestors that came before us or their allies that stood up, protested, and advocated for us to be equal, we would not have the opportunity to be gathered here today to reminisce about the past and talk about the future. As we celebrate the 20th anniversary for the Fannie Lou Hamer Symposium, I think that we should take a moment to highlight a significant cause that Fannie Lou Hamer was passionate about: civic engagement and voting rights. In recent times, we are witnessing more and more acts of oppression against marginalized communities all over the nation. Political machines are seeking to oppress many needed voices through advocating for the legalization of unethical voting practices. This is why I encourage all of us in this theater today, if you are able to, register to vote if you have not done so already, and encourage those in your community to register. Because of leaders like Mrs. Hamer, we are able to utilize our rights as lawful citizens to vote for candidates that fight for social, economic, and environmental policies that benefit our communities. I hope through this symposium, you will gain impactful knowledge and inspiration to become a catalyst of social change in your community, state, and country. Thank you.
Let's keep it going for Vanessa. Thank you so much for your leadership on putting this program together. Next, I would like to bring out our president, Dr. Joe Bertolino.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 20th Annual Fannie Lou Hamer Human and Civil Rights Symposium. I'm Joe Bertolino, president of the university, and I'm honored to welcome you all to this important event as we honor the legacy of Fannie Lou Hamer through action and education. So you know, Ms. Hamer famously drew attention to the social injustices of the black citizens in Mississippi and was a staunch advocate for civil rights, voting rights, and social justice. Her legacy aligns with Stockton's mission of developing engaged and effective citizens who champion inclusivity, diversity, respect, and social justice. If we as an institution are going to deliver on that mission of valuing diversity and inclusivity, we must be proactive in promoting civil rights and social justice. I have been privileged to be a social justice educator for almost 30 years, long before the term social justice became a buzzword in the political sphere. To me, social justice can best be described as ensuring that we treat one another with dignity, respect, kindness, compassion, and civility. Again, those 5 pillars: ensuring that we are treating each other with dignity, respect, kindness, compassion, and civility. And to do that, we must recognize that all of us come from, not all of us come from the same place, with the same experiences, nor from the same starting point. We all start from a different place, a different perspective. It is important to have compassion for one another. And in order to do so, we must listen to understand, not listen to respond. We must acknowledge the long history of events, policies, and circumstances that have led our country and our world to where it is today. And when we talk about civil rights, we must have the complete picture. We cannot be champions for civil rights and social justice if we do not address systemic racism. We must speak out about the true history and legacy of people of African descent, and we must consistently seek out ways to be educated on the issues, engage with those who can help us make a difference, and act as a model for true diversity and inclusivity. Earlier today, we unveiled a statue of Fannie Lou Hamer in Boardwalk Hall, the site of her famous address at the 1964 Democratic National Convention in Atlantic City. I want to thank you for joining us as we continue the work of bringing about social justice, protecting the civil rights of our historically marginalized community members, and deconstructing the racial barriers to academic and personal success. It is our duty to address these barriers by working together to make higher education accessible and creating an environment where all our community members have a sense of belonging and support, and to ensure that every member of our community feels welcomed, has a sense of belonging, feels as though they belong, and that they know they are seen. And again, we stand by our 5 pillars of dignity, respect, kindness, compassion, and civility. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bertolino. I neglected to introduce myself. My name is Donitris Allison, Chair of the Africana Studies Program at Stockton University. Africana Studies. This is the 40th year of Africana Studies at the university, and we'll be celebrating in the spring. Right now, though, we want to take a moment and watch this compilation video that gives you a picture of the last 20 years that we have been celebrating and lifting up the name of Fannie Lou Hamer.
Happy birthday, Fannie Lou Hamer! Thank God for Fannie Lou Hamer. But you know what, thank God for Stockton College and Dr. soon-to-be President Harvey Kesselman and Dr. Patricia Reed Merritt, because they represent the excellence that Stockton has always sought to have. And they represent the diversity and excellence at the same time that we know is possible in New Jersey and in this country. I'm really excited about being here today, and I understand that Stockton College/University is one of the only schools in not just the state, but the country that actually pauses to recognize Fannie Lou Hamer on her birthday and the magnificent sacrifices everyday ordinary person used by God to do something extraordinary did and brought to our country.
Fannie Lou Hamer at a mass meeting, and from that mass meeting she went to register to vote. I was in the bus that took her to register to vote. Now you got to understand, Fannie Lou Hamer was unlike most people. She was a religious fundamentalist, she was a political pragmatist, she was a very gregarious person who loved people, but who didn't take anything from anyone.
Would have challenged us to do. When she challenged the Democratic Party in 1964, she simply wanted to have a seat at the table, even if it meant she had to bring in a folding chair. I want to have a seat at the table. I want to have a say in the government of my country. And she was beaten for that. She was jailed for that. She was marginalized for that. We shouldn't forget that this occurred just a few decades ago. We shouldn't forget that there was a struggle for civil rights in this country, a struggle for voting rights.
See, Fannie Lou Hamer did not care. She did not care. She refused to accept inequality. Now, it might be useful at this moment to step back and talk about the rules. See, Fannie Lou Hamer wanted us to have one set of rules, but she also exemplifies the kind of person who's going to go get it. We live in a go-along-to-get-along society. We live in a society of half measures. We don't want to call anybody out because it's too delicate to call folks out. Fannie Lou Hamer was not having that. She was sick and tired of being sick and tired of being the invisible black woman. I want you to be as sick and tired as Fannie Lou Hamer was about injustice. Because when you become that sick and that tired, you'll do something to make a difference.
So here we are, more polarized than ever. And civil rights has become a polarizing issue when once upon a time it was an American issue, and there was moral authority associated with standing up for civil rights.
Because Fannie Lou Hamer was an American revolutionary. Oh, yes, she was. She kept track of the vicious legacy of white supremacy and connected it with the vicious legacy of imperial arrogance, and also was always willing to be humble and to bear witness, not in the spirit of self-righteousness, but a spirit of resiliency.
And when I lay myself down to sleep, I know each and every single day I did my damn best to help our people. And I don't do it for the shine, and I don't do it for the vine. I'm certainly not a famous person. I ain't in jet, ebony, or essence. But I do it for Fannie. And I do it for Ella. I do it for my mom, who still works. I do it for my grandmother, graduated from school at 16. I do it for the women that came before me and the women and men after.
Fannie Lou, in my own memory, has always been so important. She was always the great hero from my mother of the civil rights movement. She always talked about how you hear always about Martin Luther King or Rosa Parks, but it was really Fannie Lou. You know, Fannie Lou who was on the ground, Fannie Lou who was a sharecropper herself, who was a child laborer picking between 200 and 300 bales of cotton as a child, and Fannie Lou who was beaten so badly by the police that she suffered permanent injuries. I think that I'm honored to be giving this talk and remembering Fannie Lou Hamer, and to really think about her in a moment that I'll be talking about today of Black Lives Matter, of Ferguson, of Baltimore, and of Charlotte, and to think back to that civil rights generation as really having experienced and mobilized in exactly the ways that we see young people today.
So I want to hold up some of those people and talk about what that tradition represented. But I also want to talk about what Dr. King referred to as the fierce urgency of now. That is, how does the legacy of the civil rights movement, especially the radical voices of the civil rights movement, relate to the political moment that we find ourselves in today?
I would respond to the question that the civil rights leaders today and for the future are those of you that I am in fact looking at. I take, for instance, in my new role as the Director of Faith and Constituency Outreach for the Democratic National Committee. 2 years ago, young people around this country registered to vote and voted for the first African-American president of the United States of America. What more fulfilling tribute to Fannie Lou Hamer but that young people, disproportionate, did in fact what she lost her life for, what she got laughed at about, what she got talked about, all because she wanted the opportunity to control her political destiny.
I want to say that the leadership taken by the Africana Studies program in this regard is perhaps the vanguard position of any Africana Studies program in the nation on Fannie Lou Hamer. I don't know any other program that has joined this effort any more intensely than you have at Stockton.
People who worked in organizations, whether it was the Panther Party, SNCC, whether it was any of the organizations, RAM, whether it was the Nation of Islam, those people felt that this was a way to change the objective conditions in America. People put their lives on the line because they felt that America could actually change, that their children could actually have a different place in this world. That's why people put themselves on the line. It wasn't like they made a decision, I'm going to do this. People were compelled, and one of the compulsions was that, for me, one of the compulsions was that I actually could do something to change 400 years of history. 400 years of history. So I tell people that, and I always ask them the same thing I will ask you: what would you do? What would you do if you thought you could turn this whole thing around?
Fannie Lou Hamer said, "I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired." And for us, we think about the ways in which the history, the legacy of racial oppression, the ways in which that legacy has affected each and every one of us, generations of us, be it the institution of enslavement, to Jim Crow, to lynching, to the civil rights struggle and the civil rights violation, to the resistance to the Civil Rights Act, to police brutality and state-sponsored violence. There have been people who have been fighting those instances for centuries. However, what people don't understand is that each of the people who proclaim to be activists have gone through their own struggles. And when we talk about the difference between a moment and a movement, we have to look at the moments that we all experience that create the movement in us. Each and every one of you are a part of this movement.
Throughout the 1960s and 70s, Hamer often reminded activists to never fall into the trap of imagining that their local struggle was somehow disconnected from the struggles of other marginalized peoples. Hamer resisted what she saw as any individual or collective effort to advance social progress for some rather than for all. Now, we've got to have some changes in this country, Hamer argued, and not only changes for the Black man, and not only changes for the Black woman, but the changes we have to have in this country are going to be for the liberation of all people. I am not just fighting for myself and for the Black race, but I am fighting for the Indians, I'm fighting for the Mexicans, I'm fighting for the Chinese, I'm fighting for anybody, because as long as they are human beings, they need freedom. Hamer summarized her position in 5 powerful words that she often repeated: nobody's free until everybody's free.
I don't think there's even a white person under the sun could say they would be patient as long as we've been patient. This is just a lot of crap that folks talk about true democracy of this country, because ain't nobody had it. You hadn't had it because you can't have yours until I have mine.
We are sick and tired of being sick and tired. For so many years, Negroes have suffered in the state of Mississippi. And we are tired of people saying that we are satisfied, because we are everything but satisfied.
This country is sick. And the only way this country will survive is people working like you and like I'm working, that's really concerned about human beings of this country. Because other than that, a house divided against itself cannot stand. And the same thing goes with a nation. A nation divided against itself cannot stand. And it's going to take people like you that's concerned about this country that can make a great society. The salvation of this country will rest on your shoulders, all of your shoulders. That's young and determined to see that things will change not only in Mississippi but all around this country for human beings. And before I be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free.
Wow, what a legacy. Students, you should be proud of your institution that we've had this 20-year commitment to honoring civil rights and social justice in the name of Fannie Lou Hamer. So next, we are going to do something that we've always done for this program. We've always had an artistic expression for this program. As you were coming in, some of you, those of you who were early on the screen, you saw some dance performances, some drumming, and a rendition, an actress who performed as Fannie Lou Hamer. Today we're going to give you a literary presentation of some poetry that came out of the Black arts movement. And we are going to do that through the voices of Dr. Lee Bryant, Louise Gorham-Neblett, and Dr. Patricia Reed Merritt. And they're going to recite some historic poetry for you, starting with Louise Gorham-Neblett.
Thank you. I'll be reciting Maya Angelou's And Still I Rise. You may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may ground me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I'll rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I got oil wells pumping in my living room. Just like moon, like sun, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling just like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as some surprise that I walk like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. Leaving behind nights of terror and fear, I rise. Into a daybreak that's wondrously clear, I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise. I rise. I rise. There I go. Ashe. My brother.
My brothers, I will not tell you who to love or not to love. I will only say to you that Black women have not been loved enough. I will say to you that we are at war and that Black men in America are being removed from this earth like loose sand in a windstorm. And that the women Black are three to each of us. No, my brothers, I will not tell you who to love or not to love, but I will make you aware of our self-hating and hurting ways. I will make you aware of whose belly valleys you've dropped from. I will glue to your ears all these images. You reflect, you reflect, you reflect, which are not being loved.
In 1942, Margaret Walker wrote "For My People." In the midst of the civil rights movement 20 years later, it became a bit of an anthem for many people who decided she's really telling our story. She's speaking to the experiences that we have had, and yet she wants us to know that we all must engage in the struggle for my people. For my people everywhere, singing their slave songs repeatedly, their dirges and their ditties and their blues and jubilees, praying their prayers lightly to an unknown God, bending their knees humbly to an unseen power. For my people, lending their strength to the years, to the gone years and the now years and the maybe years, washing, ironing, cooking, scrubbing, sewing, mending, hoeing, plowing, digging, planting, pruning, patching, dragging, all along never gaining, never reaping, never knowing, and never understanding. For my playmates in the clay and dust and sands of Alabama, backyards playing baptizing and preaching and doctor and jail and soldier and school and mama and cooking and playhouse and concert and store and hair and Miss Shuby and company. For the cramped, bewildered years when we went to school to learn, to know the reasons why and the answers to, and the people who, and the places where, and the days when, in memory of the bitter hours when we discovered we were poor and black and small and different, and nobody cared, and nobody wondered, and nobody understood. For the boys and girls who grew up in spite of these things, to be man and woman, to laugh and dance and sing and drink and play their wine and religion and success, to marry their playmates and bear children, and then die of consumption, anemia, and lynching. For my people thronging 47th Streets in Chicago and Lenox Avenue in New York, and Rampart Streets in New Orleans, lost, disinherited, dispossessed, and happy people filling the cabarets and taverns and other people's pockets, needing bread and shoes and milk and land and money and something all of our own. For my people walking blindly, spreading joy, losing time, being lazy, sleeping when hungry, shouting when burdened, drinking when hopeless, tied and shackled and tangled among ourselves by the unseen creatures who tower over us omnisciently and laugh. For my people blundering and groping and floundering in the dark of churches and schools and clubs and societies, associations and councils and committees, conventions, distressed and disturbed and deceived and devoured by money-hungry, glory-craving leeches, preyed on by the facile force of state and fad and novelty, by false prophets and holy believers. For my people, standing, starving, striving to fashion a better way from confusion, from hypocrisy and misunderstanding, trying to fashion a world that will hold all the people, all the faces, all the Adams, all the Eves, and the countless generations. Let a new earth rise. Let another world be born. Let a bloody peace be written in the sky. Let a second generation full of courage issue forth. Let a people loving freedom come to growth. Let a beauty fill of healing and strength of final clinching be the pulsing in our spirits and our blood. Let the martial songs in our spirit and our blood be written. Let the dirges disappear. Let a new race of men and women now rise and take control. Yeah, that's it.
Before you introduce her, we're going to show the video from the Secretary of State.
Okay. We're about to introduce our keynote speaker, but we received just a few minutes ago a video from the Secretary of State of New Jersey, who would like to offer her special greetings.
Good day. I'm New Jersey's Lieutenant Governor Tahisha Way, and I'm pleased to welcome everyone to the 20th Annual Fannie Lou Hamer Human and Civil Rights Symposium. I'm sorry I couldn't be with you in person, but no, I am here in spirit. Yes, almost 60 years ago, Fannie Lou Hamer stood in Atlantic City and demanded to be heard, to be counted as a citizen, allowed to register to vote and participate in our democracy. Her brave, fierce advocacy helped move our nation forward in terms of civil rights and voting rights. Ms. Hamer is someone I look to as a role model, a hero. She was fearless in her pursuit of equal access to the ballot box. She spoke up in front of powerful people who wanted to silence her, risked her life, and lost her home when she registered to vote. But she kept pushing and demanding the right to vote for herself and her community. And in my capacity as Secretary of State, I serve as New Jersey's chief election official. I do not take for granted that for most of our nation's history, generations of folk like me, like Fannie Lou, weren't even allowed to vote, let alone help secure and protect voting rights for everyone. I work every day to make sure, at least here in New Jersey, everyone who is eligible to vote can without coercion or suppression. I know I'm not alone in the work because I have colleagues across the country doing the same work, including my friend, California Secretary of State Shirley Weber. It is fitting that Secretary Weber, a fearless trailblazer in her own right, the first African American to serve as secretary in the history of California, is here to help unveil the statute of Fannie Lou Hamer. Secretary Weber has served the people of California as their chief election official since 2021, and before that, she served in the California Assembly. Shirley has been a lifelong advocate and activist for civil rights and voting rights, and we are blessed to welcome her to New Jersey for today's program. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce California Secretary of State, Shirley Weber.
I am so grateful for that video. She said everything I was supposed to say. And I only want to add a few words to it. Usually when you come to a program like this, we have a written program, the person's bio's in there, they got all this long information telling you about who this person is. And of course, our Secretary of State just shared some of that with you. But I've known Dr. Weber for more than 30 years. And I met her because she served on the National Council of Black Studies, and in fact, she's president of that organization. One of the significant things about having Dr. Weber with us here today is that for more than 30 years, I think it's probably 40 years, she served as the chairperson of the Africana Studies program at San Diego State University. She is truly one of us. She's been an educator all of her life, even though in the last decade, she has been serving in the state of California, first in the Assembly, then as a senator, and now as the California Secretary of State. This is a person that was indicated in the video that's committed to social justice, that spends her time constantly educating people about the need for us to be familiar with and knowledgeable about the kinds of issues that impact us in our community, and that her responsibility as Secretary of State, one of her main responsibilities is making certain that everybody has access to the ballot and that the votes are counted correctly. And so it is indeed my great pleasure to introduce my friend, colleague, sister in the struggle, Dr. Shirley Weber, Secretary of State for the state of California. Stand and give her a Stockton welcome.
Well, thank you, Pat, Dr. Reed Merritt, and thanks to my friend Tahisha Way, who's the Secretary of State here in New Jersey. It's good to be with you today and to be a part of what has taken place this morning. I'm Dr. Shirley Weber, California's first African-American Secretary of State in 174 years, I think, of California's history. And I'm honored to be here with you because of what you're doing. You know, I do a lot of different things. I get a lot of invitations to go places, and sometimes I enjoy them and sometimes I don't, but I go because it's important that I'm there. This was important for us, for my staff, for me to basically travel all the way across this country to talk about a woman, but more importantly, to talk about what she did in that time frame and to ask the question so quickly as to where are we now? Where are we with regards to all the things that Fannie Lou Hamer fought for? Where are we in terms of what we should be doing to bring some sense of justice and equality in this nation? I was pleased to hear the poems that were there because they're inspirational. Poems of rising for my people. All those poems have consistently motivated me as an African-American woman to continue to strive and to work hard. But no one probably has motivated me more in terms of a public figure than Fannie Lou Hamer. And I say that because so often I'm asked from so many people, who motivated you? You know, who was the person that you looked up to, and how did you get to where you are? How do you become the highest ranking black woman in elected state office in California, one of the largest state in the union? How do you get there? And I have to, sometimes people want to know, and I give them famous names sometimes, but most of the time I don't. I give them the name of people who helped me, folks that they would never ever meet, who reminds me of the Fannie Lou Hamers of the world. Folks who said to me, little girl, you're gonna be something when you grow up. And they give you a little gift in church on Sunday. They read about you in the newspaper, and the preacher got up and told them that you were a Woodrow Wilson Fellow. And they didn't even know what that was, but it sounded good and important. And they were proud of the fact that I was having a title of somebody or some place or some institution that they didn't really understand. You know, my father asked me when I was invited to continue with the program at UCLA, and I said, I'm not sure, Dad, if I want to go get a PhD. And his response was, what is that? You know, if it was education, he just wanted, what is it? And I said, well, Daddy, it's the highest degree you can get in any particular field. He said, let's go get it. That was his attitude, because he knew what I was doing was about myself, but really about us. He said, let us go get it. And he meant every word of it when he said, if you want to go to school, I'll drink muddy water and sleep in a hollow log to get you there. And he meant every word of that blues song as his support for me and my sisters and brothers. So I'm always honored when I'm in the presence of people who honor someone who reminds me so much of myself. My parents were sharecroppers in Arkansas. We were a poor family living in the projects. All of those things that you think about that really equal up to basically not achieving things, in this sense, because it was a community that believed in me, folks like Fannie Lou Hamer who fought for us, all those kinds of things put together somehow can nullify all the negative things you had in your life. All the poverty, all the racism, the discrimination, all those things. Our family developed these buffers against that for us, so that we grew up believing, in spite of what we had, that we could always be somebody. So I'm honored to be with you today. I'm honored the fact that it brings me back full circle, because at my soul and my heart, I'm a teacher. And I make no bones about that, and my staff says I'm teaching them every day, because we have long conversations sometimes about how you act and what history means and what you're supposed to do. And so I have a tremendous value and appreciation for education. And when I was asked by the governor to assume the remaining term of Mr. Padilla when he went to the Senate, I had to think hard and long about whether or not this was something I wanted to do. I had and was continuing to have a very successful legislative career. You know, when one thinks about social issues or police brutality, they often think of 392, my bill that prevents police officers from shooting people. My reparations bill that just finished the reparations task force, the first reparations of the state. All of those things talking about how we move California forward in terms of what we need to do to create some sense of justice and equality. And I had just been elected to my 5th term and was looking forward to what legislation we were going to do and continue to do that. But I had to think hard and long, because I had been observing what was happening in America. I had been looking at what was going on after the last election of 2020. I was listening to people who were talking about really dismantling the systems of democracy, talking about invalidating people's votes, setting up legislators who would then take their position and substitute it for the position of others. And so I began to see that, and I remember quite clearly when I was asked to become Secretary of State, and the media wanted to interview me, and they said, but you've had such a successful legislative career, and you still have another 3 or 4 years to go in that before you're termed out. You know, why would you want to do this? And I said, because I firmly believe that this nation is in peril. The democracy that we have learned to lean on and appreciate and the various court systems are in peril. That we have some of the most powerful people who are attacking the very foundation of a democracy. And that's the right of individuals to vote, to have their voices heard, to choose those who will be their leader. And I knew, I said at that point, I said, this nation is in peril. And who better to respond to that than a daughter of a sharecropper, whose grandfather never voted in this country despite being born in this country, but he died before the Voting Rights Act of 1965, whose parents never got a chance to vote until they came to California, and they were in their late 30s at the time. Who better to respond to that, what is happening in this nation, than the daughter of someone who saw her mother open their house every year as a voting poll, and people voted in our living room, not in our garage, because Daddy said there were spiders out there. And he said important stuff was happening in the living room. And so he would have my brother, and they would move all the furniture out and set up the polling place in my living room. And we walked down the driveway going to middle school because we knew that day was an important day in the life of South Central LA. It was a voting day. And my mother took pride in that. And they believed in that. And they knew that would open up doors for them and for their children that they could not see in Hope, Arkansas. So when they asked me, you know, why are you going to do this? I said, because I believe there is no stronger voice than a voice of someone who has a family that's been voiceless and understands the power and the impact that it has on the lives of others. And so with that, I decided I accepted the Secretary of State's position for the 2 years, ran for the full term, and now I'm fully elected as the Secretary of State in California. But let me say that, you know, as I think about where we are, and I've been asked to give some ideas, because as a Secretary of State of California, we're the largest voting bloc, the largest state in the union. We're the 4th largest economy in the world. We're larger than every other country other than the United States and 3 others. So California has tremendous resources and tremendous opportunities for others. And we also have a strong democracy in California that allows those of us who defend it, not only to just have to defend it in California, but to defend it everywhere in the nation and around the world. And so it becomes an incumbent upon me as the California Secretary of State, basically the official election officer of the state of California, as well as several other divisions I'm in charge of, to fight for what is right, to fight for what is just, to make sure that we do those things that are right, but also that we fight against the suppression and the voting across the nation. So it is important that when I ask the question, where are we? And I said at the time, I never thought in my life, when I was a student at UCLA, a student of Dr. Sante's and friends of Pat Reed Merritt and everybody, I never thought that voting rights would be as significant today as it is. I never thought that we would be concerned about our voting rights. We may not like the people on the other side of the aisle or whatever's going on, but I never thought that I would see people afraid for their careers, for their professions as politicians, people who had spent 40 years fighting for a democracy that they were willing to let fall apart because they were afraid for themselves. I never thought that I would have seen that, because when I was in the projects, people told me that Americans believed that democracy was the best thing, and that we could fight each and every day, and that we could write new laws, and we can lobby, and we can get people organized. And I saw that happening in those folks of the 50s and the 60s. I saw the process. I saw people sacrificing their lives like Medgar Evers, who sacrificed his life as well as all of the others who came to the South to talk about bringing change. I saw that. And then I was concerned that what I saw happening in this country was threatening the very foundation of that. Fighting amongst what's happening in the courts, basically taking apart the courts and turning them into political entities that we've never done before. And so when I began to see what is happening, I realized that we are truly in peril in this nation. And it's demanding of each and every one of us who have benefited so much from the ability that, not that everything is right, it never has been. And we're constantly working for a more perfect union. But it will not happen if we do not have the ability to vote and to vote our interest and to stand up and lobby and fight for what is right and what is just. That's what Fannie Lou did for us, each and every one of us. And she sacrificed everything she had, every bit of her life. And so when oftentimes people will come to me and say, you know, you really are very courageous when I get up and do some speech or something, I have to remind people, I'm not courageous. I'm the beneficiary of some courageous people. I'm not courageous. My daddy was courageous when he left the Klan in Arkansas, fleeing for his life and bringing his children to California. I'm not the courageous one. Fannie Lou Hamer, whose very life was threatened, beaten to the point that she was physically disabled. This was a woman who was courageous. Her whole life depended on people who hated her. She was a sharecropper, and they basically cut off her income. And so she had to, and so all of these things we have to read and understand and ask ourselves this question: why is this so important? That she would do all of this for what? The right to vote. For us to sit back and say, oh, I don't know if it matters, I don't know if it does anything, I don't know if it helps anybody. And I tell people, when you think about that, you have to think about those who gave their lives for this thing. And it wasn't that she was going to benefit from it. She never knew if any of us would ever say her name, would ever put a statue up for her, ever write a poem or book about her life. She never wrote her own book about her life. Everybody else has. So she must have understood that something was greater than herself, and that was something called self-determination, making sure that you had the ability and the power to make a decision. Voting is the American equalizer. When I go to high schools, I tell them that. I say, you know, you don't agree with your parents a lot. You sometimes fight about issues, but you know what? Your vote is just as powerful as your mama's. Think about it. Everybody gets one. Biden may be president of the United States, but he got one vote. Same as the brother on the streets who's homeless. It is the American equalizer, the ability to vote and to have your wishes known. And so it bothers me when I think about where we are. And I never thought in my lifetime that the battles of my parents would be my battles, that we would be talking about voting rights. We used to pass a voting rights bill every year, every so many years. Nobody even thought about it, didn't think about it. And now all of a sudden, it's something that we can't get the whole bill, the whole Voting Rights Act through Congress. People are talking about why? Because voting is powerful. I tell people, voting is powerful. There are a lot of things that people try to give you. But if you remember the Pettus Bridge and the march that took place there, it was about voting rights. And the president wanted to give them what? He wanted to give them housing, jobs. He wanted to give them those things. But folks in those days understood that without the ability to express yourself and have control over who represents you, it means nothing. There have been generations of black folks who've lost money, who've lost property, who've had their whole houses destroyed, but they didn't have the power to put people in or out of office to vote for them, to fight for themselves. And so our people understood that if you don't have that self-determination and that power, it means very little to you and to others. And so I encourage you to look very carefully at those, the Fannie Lou Hamers and the Medgar Evers and those who fought so hard for this simple thing that is so powerful, which is the right to vote. And so I ask the question, where are we today? After all of this discussion, I never thought people would be debating things about voting, who should and who should not, how we can construct things that were barriers for people. When you look at what is happening, we began to recognize the fact that so many things are happening that it has begun to chip away at our right to vote. And we have to be very vigilant about it. You know, in California, we have taken the broadest and most comprehensive projects in terms of voting. Everyone in California can vote who's a citizen, except for those who are physically sitting in a jail or a prison. You have to be physically sitting in a prison, having committed a felony there. But once you are finished with your term, you are immediately re-enfranchised. Immediately. You don't have to apply to anybody. You don't have to ask anyone. You can vote in California. If you forget that it's election day and you were going to register, you know what? You can register the day of the election in California. The day of the election, you can register. Everyone has that right to vote in California, except for those two, and we're working on those two with a bill now to make it possible for those sitting in prisons to be able to vote. that they still should have their rights to vote. We make sure that we have 11 days to vote in California. It's not now one and done. Everyone in California who's registered to vote gets a ballot to vote or by mail, or they can bring it in and turn it in person, or they can vote in their polls. We have every option available to people to vote. So we've opened up the franchise probably larger than any other state. People still charge folks and want to charge them to pay their past taxes and those kinds of things. We have to be conscious of that, because those are the ways in which we trap and take away from poor people their right to vote. And so as California has done that, we have continued to open up the opportunity. Those on parole now in California can vote. We passed Prop 17 2 years ago. And so every person who's on parole that could last sometimes for long periods of time are re-enfranchised. They can vote in California. So we have opened it up. And it's interesting to us that as we have done these things to open up the voting possibilities for everyone, there are so many who are shutting it down. Across the nation, when I meet with my colleagues, there's often 200 to 300 bills every year to limit voting of individuals. Even to the extent that when there were states that gave everyone, and not everyone, but it gave most people an absentee ballot. Florida had absentee ballots forever. Trump got the absentee ballots as a so-called citizen of Florida. Now they all have these rules that you can only get it for a certain period of time. You have to have a reason for having it, so you have to be sick or disabled or whatever. And many states will not let you have just an absentee ballot, period. And so it's really interesting, and somebody says, well, why? Because it works so well for someone else. Because black people used to didn't vote by mail, I can tell you that now. We didn't believe that people would put that those who were collecting the ballots would actually put our stuff in and count it. So it was a long, hard journey to convince black folks to trust other people, to take the mail and get our ballots. But now, black folks are voting significantly in the area of ballots, in terms of mail-in ballots. And we have, in California, the vast majority of Californians vote by mail. And so while we've done that, and we said, this is a great thing, we have seen state after state, Texas, Florida, Mississippi, Georgia, on down the line to begin to limit voting rights. And I say to folks who say, well, I can't see how anybody would want to make it so people couldn't vote. People aren't bold enough to say, well, we're not going to let poor people vote in California or poor people vote in this nation. What they're going to market to you is that we have a better plan that will ensure that the person who's voting is who they are. So we have voter ID, even though you know who they are, and you've had no voting fraud in your state. We want to talk about making sure that they have the ID, that this is the real person, as if everyone has ID with them. Everyone doesn't drive, everyone doesn't get these kinds of things, and yet you have validated this person as being who they are because they've been voting for the last 15 or 20 years, and you've never had any fraud or deception with regards to it. So every now and then somebody comes along with a great idea. And we're going to make sure that those folks who are voting are really who they are. So we're going to have not only one ID, but sometimes two IDs in Texas and other places. We're going to make sure that that we'll have them register every year to get an absentee ballot, because then we'll be sure they are who they are, because they'll have to file it every year, which is not what has happened in the past. In the past, mostly the affluent got absentee ballots, and no one ever questioned their desire, their right to have a ballot year after year. And so we need to pay a close attention to the fact that there are all these efforts now as barriers that look good, look nice, but basically are designed to limit the ability of people who are poor, people who are of color, the disenfranchised, to continue to vote and to vote with some ease and comfort. We have a tremendous task ahead of us, and I just wanted to say that in the process of all of that, we have so much work that we have to do. We have a lot of work to do in California, but we have a tremendous amount of work to do around the nation to make sure that we do not give up our right to vote. And as I tell people all the time, when they say, well, they're creating these rules in Georgia, they won't let people vote on Sunday in the afternoon. Why? Because people go to church in the morning, and they were taking busloads of people to vote. So they decided that they would just eliminate afternoon voting in Georgia. And people were like, well, what was that all about? You had people there, you had people in line voting, people wanting to vote. Wouldn't that be a prime time that you would actually want it to happen if you really wanted people to vote? But no, you decided you're going to limit that. You're going to say you can't give people water while they're standing in line. Why? Because mostly folks who stand in line are people who are poor, people who are black in Georgia, and you have fewer polling places in their communities than you do elsewhere. You have not equitably distributed polling places, and so our folks stand in line much longer than anybody else. And so as we fight these battles, I have to remind people of Fannie Lou Hamer. I said, listen, Fannie Lou went down there several times to take the test before they say she could have her right to vote. All these things took place. I said, even if they put a barrier on you and said, we're not going to let you have water, bring your own water. As somebody said, bring your own chair if you want to sit down. Be prepared to stay and wait. Pretend like they're handing out money at the end of the table, and so you want to be there. Whatever the issue is, don't leave, vote, and you'll see them change the rules again, maybe to your benefit. But you want to make sure that you understand the game that is being played throughout this nation to figure out how to disenfranchise people. I continue to be amazed at legislatures who write laws, and there's still some on the books, that says that they can substitute their vote for the public's will. That if they don't like what happens in the presidential election, they can actually meet and vote to take their vote and replace it with the vote of the people. And it's unbelievable that they would do that. But that's what's happening, and that's the kind of progress that we're not seeing happening in many states, and the fact that so much has come to basically rest on the issue of voting rights. And so much intimidation occurs with secretaries of state across the nation. People attacking them, their families. I just got a bill passed to keep people from attacking our poll workers, making it difficult for people to be poll workers, threatening their families, threatening them to make it a crime for them to do that. Because they were in small cities and they can intimidate people to say, I know where you live, kind of attitude, because the vote didn't go the way they wanted it. And so as a result, we've had lots of poll workers who don't want to work anymore. People said, I was doing this out of the goodness of my heart. I love doing it, kind of like my mother was, but they don't want to be poll workers anymore. So we are recruiting poll workers to work because it's turning out to be a job where people are under attack. And here was something they were doing because they were good citizens. Now it's becoming more and more difficult to recruit them. So we have to pay attention to where we are and what we're doing. And Fannie Lou Hamer, it should be a motivator to each and every one of us in this room. Like I said, I often pick up things with her and I read about it again and again because it constantly reminds me while you're sitting in your luxury and you're sitting with the challenges that you face, and then you read about Fannie Lou Hamer and how everything that she had was riding on this right to vote, her justice, her dignity, her life, and how people intimidated her, tried to destroy her family and her relationship with her husband, how they basically beat her till she was no longer able to function, her liver was not functioning. I mean, you go on and on with the things that they did to her. They raped her. She talks about that in one way, because obviously that's what was done, of those who were in jail for 2 or 3 days with her. All these things took place, and there was no one standing up and saying, stop. But she kept standing, and she kept fighting with those who believed. And as a result, we have a legacy of Fannie Lou Hamer that is second to none. As I said, when I took the position as Secretary of State and had to think about, is this something I want to do? And I had to think about the fact that I had been the beneficiary of some extremely powerful people. Not the people we know, not the Martin Luther Kings and Medgar Evers. Yeah, I've been the beneficiary of those people. But I've also been the beneficiary of those who, in Maya Angelou's poem, that was a hope and dream of the slave, that they hoped and dreamed that some of us would rise up one day and basically fashion out a new world, fashion a new place where we could actually walk with dignity and purpose, and that it would not just be us. Like I say, I get hope in the fact that every now and then when I'm getting ready to fight a battle, one of my colleagues who's white says, hold up, I got this for you. And I said, whew, that's one I don't have to deal with. They're gonna write that letter. They're gonna go to that board meeting. They're gonna handle that business. That in itself says to me, okay, teaching for 40 years meant something to somebody. You know, working in certain communities meant something. That these folks understand that their freedom and their justice is tied to me too, and mine to them. And I don't always have to be the one that's present and raising the voices that are there, that there are some of us, those who've been taught, but who understand the interconnectedness between all of us and how justice has to happen for all of us, or it happens for none of us. So I want to thank you for having me with you today. I look forward to continuing to work with Pat Reed Merritt and the work that she's doing here. We are motivated by her struggles and her desire to make sure that Fannie Lou Hamer and her legacy lives on in all of us and our children and our families, and that we hold up those values that are important. But most importantly, we also have the courage to continue to fight for what is right and what is just. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm inviting Dr. Weber to the table, and I'm inviting Dr. Malefi Asante to the table. They're just going to have some brief remarks after her talk, and then we're going to open it up, turn the lights on for a few questions from the audience. And Dr. Asante, I will invite you to respond first just to her remarks.
Wow. Okay. Wow. Thank you so much, Secretary of State of California, Madam Shirley Weber, Dr. Shirley Weber. You have certainly laid out the full issues of Fannie Lou Hamer here tonight. And I want to thank Dr. Donatrice Allison, chairperson of the Department of Africana Studies here at Stockton University, Dr. Patricia Reed Merritt, who in her own right is a historical figure. And as I said earlier, people recognize her as connected to Fannie Lou Hamer because of the work that she has done to make sure that we never forget the name of Fannie Lou Hamer. And we honor you and we appreciate you so much, Dr. Patricia Reed Merritt. Madam Secretary has brought tears to my eyes tonight. I mean, because I reached back to Georgia, where I was born and raised along with some of the 16 children in my parents' family in a two-room house. And she talked about voting and the significance of that for Fannie Lou Hamer, and it struck me deeply because neither of my parents voted. My grandparents didn't vote. It was not possible in Georgia in the 1950s and early 60s that black people who did not want to risk their lives could vote. And so Fannie Lou Hamer in 1964 in Atlantic City brought all of this to a head after the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party challenge the old segregationist Democratic Party of Mississippi at the convention. And let me just tell you just a brief thing, and I will be finished. The problem in the South was a problem that after the Reconstruction, and I don't want to give a whole history of Reconstruction, but after the Reconstruction, when black people were elected, after the war, the Civil War, black people were elected during the Reconstruction to offices, legislative offices, and we passed some important legislation. One of them was public schools. Public schools came into existence because of the black people in Congress and the black people in state legislatures. We passed a law that made it possible for you to have public highways. Otherwise, they were toll roads. That's why they were called turnpikes. You passed somebody's property, you had to pay them to go on the road, you see. We passed a law. Black people, legislators, progressive legislators in every state and every city. So what do white people do? They created the Ku Klux Klan to say we can't have these people voting and putting themselves in office. And not only can we not have them voting, but we're going to say if you vote, then you're going to have to do you have to do 3 or 4 things. 1, you've got to be able to interpret the Constitution. 2, you've got to pay poll taxes. That is, you got to pay a tax for voting. You got to pay a tax for voting. And then they would say the third thing is that your grandfather must have voted at some point. And so when a black person would come up and want to register to vote, they say, well, can you interpret the Constitution? And they would just pick out something. The white people didn't have to interpret the Constitution. Just pick out, article this. And if they say, oh, well, you Pat, you can't do that. But if you did that, then they say, okay, well, where's your poll? Did you pay your poll taxes? Show me your receipt from last year. Who's going to keep a receipt, from last year? Where go find the receipt, You can't find the receipt, right? You can't vote. If your grandfather did not vote, this is because this is how they made sure that white people could vote, is because their grandfathers before the Civil War had right to vote, you see? So that's what they call the grandfather clause, right? So we couldn't vote. There's no way that you couldn't break through this. And Fannie Lou Hamer, with the fire that she had, said, I'm going to go down and I'm going to register to vote and I'm going to challenge this law. There were other black people who did it as well. But she, uneducated as far as formal education is concerned in American sense, but a brilliant woman because she understood how the system worked. She challenged that system. And I want to just say this is the last thing. We broke down those laws. We got the voting right law and all that. But now I'm going to tell you the challenge that Madam Secretary introduced to us is this. It's a demographic challenge. What the negative forces in this country see is that the young white people in this country are more progressive than the old white people. What they see is that the immigrants coming to this country are more progressive than the people who have been here, a lot of them. What they see is the power of the African American population is growing in voting. So now they have tried to engineer other kind of laws. So all these rules that they're trying to engineer, that's why they're doing it. They're not doing it because they want everybody to vote, and we have full democracy like we should. What's wrong with what the state of California is doing? Nothing. It's like, oh, democracy? Why shouldn't you be able to register on the day that you vote? What's wrong with that? Why shouldn't you be able to find a place where you can cast your vote? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with it is that they believe that the people who are voting will be voting for progressive policies. And they're trying to figure out how to reduce that vote. And that's why they're doing gerrymandering in Alabama. That's why they're changing, want to change, we've got to make sure that black people don't have the right to vote and have their voices counted. So this is just my reaction to listening to this very brilliant and powerful presentation by Madam Secretary Shirley Weber.
Thank you so much. I want to pose one question to each of you, and then I'm going to open it up for questions from the audience. So, audience, you are looking at living history right here. First in so many ways, Dr. Asante creating the first PhD program in African American Studies, and of course, Dr. Weber being the first black woman to hold her position in California. So, what would you say to these young people, there are students in the audience, what would you say to them in terms of what's possible? We know the challenges that are ahead, but in terms of what the next 20 years bring and what they should be kind of pushing for and looking forward to in terms of what they can give in society. what would you say?
I just want to say, for me, it's education. Educate yourself, and particularly about history, because history has answers for a lot of things for us. And I think it's fundamental that we know what the context is for things. If you don't know the context for things, everything will be confusing, chaos. You can't explain anything. But you've got to know the context. If you know the context of things, if you educate yourself, it seems to me that then we can go forward. And I like what I think it was Madam Secretary said, courage. I think you've got to have courage. You've got to be able to speak up. And, you know, and to me, people always talk about the creation of the PhD program, but I had to fight people. You know, the people, you don't, I don't know, you can't imagine that white people said, okay, we're going to let this black guy create a PhD program at Temple University and African American Studies. No, they didn't. No, every step of the way was a fight. Every move was a fight. And we were able to do it, but it was hard, it's difficult. But you have to be courageous and you have to believe in what you're doing. And I think that if you educate yourself and you know the context, you know the process, you work the process.
You know, I think, and I totally agree with that, because I know it's important for us to continue to fight, to continue to work, to continue to educate, and to change ourselves as well as to change those around us. I operate on the premise oftentimes a couple of things. One, every year I find somebody whose life I think I can make better. I think that's important. It was important to me as an educator. You know, some of the folks on my staff now are folks who I encourage to go to school, to stay in school and improve themselves and work with the community. And each one of us have the capacity to enhance somebody else's life, whether it's a child or an adult. You have the ability to do that. You'd be surprised how significant it is when you, in the community in which you work, you take an interest in the people that's there. You know, I used to go to, when I was always at church, I would ask the kids, I said, how you doing in school? And nobody ever asked them that. How you doing in school? And they'd go, oh, I'm doing all right, Sister Weber. I said, well, what's your grades like? Oh, I didn't do too good in math. And, you know, he tell me, I said, well, you know, you could do better. And we talk about it for a while. And invariably, when progress came around the next time, they would be looking for me.
That's right.
Sister Webb, I need to tell you something. What you gonna tell me? I want you to know that I got a B in algebra.
That's
Did you
right.
really? Well, we gonna work on that A, but I like that B, you know. And I said, well, I tell you what, we're gonna go to McDonald's or something, or give them a little bit of money or something, say, you know, because I know you can do it. It is important that we take an interest in people and we share with them what we have. It is extremely important to do that. But it's also, you know, every time something bad happens in my neighborhood, in my community, or in my world, I always ask myself the question, because I take full responsibility for the world, not only that I live in right directly, but the world that I have to influence. And I always want to know, did I ever meet that person? Did I ever give them something that they needed? You know, do I know their family? And I could have probably done more. But as long as it's somebody else's problem, you don't have to do anything. But when it becomes your concern, and even though you may never seen that person, you've probably seen something like that person. Take charge of it. Fannie Lou Hamer saw what was happening in her community because people were not allowing black people to participate in the democratic process. And most folks would have said, oh, girl, that's the way they do it. You know, I ain't in it no more. No. You are it. It will only exist because of you. You have to operate with that premise. When Pat Reed Merritt decided that she was going to do this, nobody said, well, she didn't say, well, you know, that was a good idea, but shoot, I ain't got that kind of time. She said, I can make this happen. I know some people who can help me. I'm going to work on it. If it's just a small thing, I'm going to get it done. So all I'm saying to each and every one of you, you know, you don't have to do something so grandiose. I remember my Alana Karanga used to always say, everybody want to save the world. He said, but say the person sitting next to you. He said, because that's the person who can call you an account. The world can't jump up and say, oh, Shirley Weber didn't show up in the world. No. But the people in my neighborhood could say, you know, we had some needs, and she never showed up. We asked her for something, and she couldn't deliver it or even couldn't explain to us why she couldn't. Take responsibility for your world. Don't sit and look at CNN and say, oh my God, January 6th was absolutely horrible. Make a commitment that it never happens again. Make a commitment that those things will happen, and you'll be surprised how your influence will grow and grow and grow. I'm just a little kid from South Central LA. Didn't have any influential relatives at all. Went to church where there might have been some influential people, but I didn't have any influential relatives. I didn't have any money. I didn't have all these things. But I looked at the church one day and I said, you know, this church has never, as big as it is, has never had a Thanksgiving dinner. Somebody reminded me the other day, said, you know, you were the first person as a teenager at 15 organized the first Thanksgiving dinner at this church for the neighborhood. And in doing that, they've been doing it ever since. And the thing was, all I did was get up there and say, you know, we need to feed people. We need to do this. And my little teenage friends said, yeah, let's get this together. The church folks were so happy. They said, we got plenty of food. They started giving us their Thanksgiving turkey. They said, it's better served over here than it is at home. But we did something without and made it happen. Not wait to become an adult and get something done. Take your community right now. Right now. I had some group of students who decided the students were doing well in school, and they were students themselves. They organized their own study group. Then they went out in the community and studied with the kids on certain days of the week. Then they organized a summer program. Before I knew it, they were running a full-blown program for kids in the neighborhood. And so take charge and do what you can. You don't have to wait to become famous. You don't have to wait till somebody acknowledges you. Get it done. Our community has survived because of individuals who decided to do something. I often tell people the black community is the most organized community in the world. Everybody in the black community remembers something, 2 or 3 things. You know, they church, they the mother of the church, they on this board, that board, they got the AKAs, they got the Deltas, they got the Links, they got the Jack and Jills. You can go down the list, black women, and this, that, and the other, Bawapa, Mamapa. We got a bunch of folks. And so everybody joined something. And when we don't see what we want, we start it. We don't have no problem in starting new stuff and giving it new names. So I just say to you, if you're going to do anything, young folks, do it now.
Absolutely.
Don't wait. Do it now.